Amara stood in front of the mirror, steadying herself for another day behind the mic. Her rich mahogany skin caught the morning light, a soft glow against the halo of tight 4C coils crowning her head. Her build was full and grounded, curves, hips, softness, but her presence was steel. Her round face held warm eyes that disarmed even the most guarded caller. And her laugh, it made people feel safe, like home. She had rebuilt herself from heartbreak once, piece by piece, and made a name speaking truths others were too afraid to say. The radio booth was her sanctuary. Her voice, both balm and beacon, helped strangers find their way through the dark. She didn't know it yet, but today, her own past was coming back on the airwaves, and it wasn't asking for advice. The lobby smelled like coffee and too much ambition. Amara swiped her keycard, nodded at the receptionist, and made her way down the familiar hallway of Wave 98.7. Posters lined the walls, snapshots of music legends, quotes about connection, old promos of her show, Love, Late with Amara Lewis. Inside the booth, the low hum of equipment calmed her nerves like a heartbeat. She slid into her chair, adjusted the mic, and took a deep breath. The ritual always centered her. Testing, 1, 2, she said, her voice low and velvet rich. Let's talk, lovers. The red on-air light blinked to life. Calls poured in, the usual mix of heartbreak and hope. A woman questioning if it was time to let go. A man asking how to earn forgiveness. Amara handled each with care, walking the tightrope between empathy and honesty. Then the line lit up again. Line 3, her producer buzzed in her ear. He says it's about unfinished business. Amara's brows lifted. Put him through. A pause, a click. Then the voice. Hey, first-time caller, long-time listener, the man said, with a smooth, husky tone that wrapped around her like smoke. Name's Jules. Something in her chest shifted. She tried to keep her tone light. Welcome to Love, Late, Jules. What's on your heart tonight? He hesitated. Someone I lost, a long time ago. I didn't say goodbye the way I should have. Didn't think I was enough for her back then. Amara's breath caught. Her fingers tightened around her pen. Jules kept talking. She was everything. Smart, funny, more fire than I knew what to do with. She deserved someone solid, and I wasn't. Silence filled the space between them, charged and heavy. Then came the punch. Amara, he said, it's me, Julian. Her world tilted. The red on-air light glowed steady, unforgiving. She didn't move, not at first. The name hung in the air like smoke in a closed room. Julian. It had been years, but the syllables still knew how to land like a bruise. Amara forced a small laugh, smooth and practiced. Well, look at that, a ghost from the archives. Julian's voice softened. I didn't mean to ambush you. You didn't, she cut in, sharp but calm. You called a public show, you shared your story. It happens all the time. She clicked her pen. Her tone slid into something more polished. Professional armor. For those just tuning in, we're speaking with a caller who's rediscovered nostalgia. And while it's sweet, let's remember, memory has a way of polishing what was never perfect. Julian was quiet, listening. I appreciate your honesty, Jules, she said, carefully keeping her voice level. But we all lose things. That's part of growing up. And some loves, she paused. Some loves are meant to stay lost. The air felt thinner. Her producer's eyes were wide through the booth glass, but Amara didn't waver. Let's take a quick break, she said smoothly. Stay with us. More calls, more heart, more truth. When we come back. The red light dimmed. Silence. Her hand trembled, barely, as she set down her headset. No one said a word. She stared at the console, heart pounding, knowing one thing for sure. He was back. And despite everything she just said, she wasn't ready. The moment the on-air light blinked off for the final time that night, Amara exhaled, like she'd been holding her breath for hours. The studio emptied around her, but she didn't move. Her headset rested on the desk, her notes untouched. The room, usually her sanctuary, suddenly felt like a spotlight she couldn't escape. Tasha, her producer, peeked in from the booth. "You good?" Amara nodded once, tight. "Just a curveball." That didn't sound like just a curveball. Amara gave a dry smile. "It's fine. I've had worse surprises. Like that one guy who proposed on air with a ukulele." Tasha didn't laugh. "You don't have to be chill about this." "I'm not chill," Amara said quietly. "I'm composed. There's a difference." She finally stood, rolling tension out of her shoulders. Her reflection in the booth window looked tired. Not broken, but not whole either. As she packed up her bag, her phone buzzed. One new voicemail, unknown number. She stared at it for a beat before pressing delete. Some doors, she told herself, needed to stay closed. 2 days later, a package showed up at the front desk. No sender name, just her initials, written in a script only one person ever used. Inside, a playlist burned onto an old-school CD. The title read, "For the Hours We Never Got." Tucked behind it was a note. "I didn't know how to reach you without making it a show. So here's something quieter. If you listen, I'll be wherever the music ends." Amara stared at it, heart thudding. He still remembered she liked physical things. Tangible proof. A disc in her hand was harder to ignore than a text she could scroll past. She didn't press play. Not yet. But she didn't throw it away either. She set it down, slowly, carefully, the way you handle something fragile that could either shatter you or show you something worth saving. After another day from work, Amara dropped her keys in the bowl by the door and stepped out of her heels like they were shackles. Her apartment was dim, quiet, just the soft hum of the fridge and the occasional creak of old wood settling. She stood in the middle of her living room for a long moment, holding the envelope with Julian's note. Then she set it down, unopened, on the coffee table, like it might explode. The silence pressed in. She poured a glass of wine, turned off her phone, and finally let herself sit. The leather couch sighed beneath her. So did she. Her eyes drifted toward the record player in the corner, dusty but not forgotten. And suddenly, she was back there. Memory flowed back. 5 years ago. They'd been wrapped in each other, lying on the floor, sweat and laughter still between them. The record spun something soft. Etta James, maybe. He traced circles on her back, whispering lines from songs he never released. "I don't know how to do this without you," she'd murmured. Julian had kissed her shoulder. "Then don't." But 2 weeks later, he was gone. No fight, no closure, just a half-written note and a voicemail she never deleted. Not because she forgave him, but because she wanted to remember how much it hurt. She remembered waking up that morning to his side of the bed cold. How she checked the studio, the diner, even the park. How she sat in the bathtub, fully clothed, not crying, just stunned. He had vanished like a song fading mid-verse. Amara blinked, pulling herself out of the memory and back to the present, like stepping out of a pool too deep. She wasn't that woman anymore, the one who waited, who begged the silence to speak. She had climbed out of that heartbreak with her bare hands. But her heart still clenched at the thought of how easy it had been for him to walk away. She reached for the CD on the table, stared at it. Not ready yet. Instead, she whispered to the empty room, "You don't get to just come back." But even as she said it, her voice cracked, just a little. The espresso machine hissed behind the counter. Jazz drifted overhead, and the scent of cinnamon and old wood hung in the air. Mara sat at her usual corner table in Grounds and Grace, a cozy neighborhood cafe where she could write show notes and sip in peace. She was halfway through her latte when she heard it. The voice. That voice. "Hey," Julian said, standing across from her table, a little out of breath. "I didn't know if I'd catch you." Amara didn't flinch. She didn't smile either. "You did," she said coolly. "Now what?" Julian swallowed. I've been trying to figure out how to say this, how to explain why I left, why I didn't say goodbye. Amara folded her hands in her lap, slow and deliberate. You explained enough. On air. Nationally. I wasn't trying to make it a stunt. Maybe not, she said, eyes narrowing. But you still knew I wouldn't hang up in front of a live audience. Julian shifted, visibly thrown. I couldn't leave it the way it was. You deserve to hear it from me, the truth. Amara raised an eyebrow. The truth is 5 years late. I didn't think I had anything left to offer you, he said quietly. I lost my deal, my money, my confidence. You were building something real, and I was falling apart. I left so I wouldn't drag you down with me. She leaned back in her chair, voice low and firm. You didn't protect me, Julian. You abandoned me. That's not noble. It's cowardice, wrapped in self-pity. He looked like she'd slapped him but didn't interrupt. Amara exhaled slowly, carefully. You don't get to show up now with playlists and apologies, like that fills the crater you left. I'm not the girl you walked away from. I'm not yours to fix this time. I'm not trying to fix you, he said. I wanted to tell you I see it now, what I did, what I lost. She stood, picking up her coat. That's good, she said softly. Growth looks good on you. Keep going, just not toward me. And with that, Amara walked past him and out the door, shoulders high, heels clicking like punctuation behind her. She didn't look back. 2 days later, Amara's name was trending. She didn't even realize it until Tasha burst into her office, holding her phone like it was a golden ticket. You went viral. Amara blinked. What? The coffee shop? Someone caught it on camera. You and Julian, the whole I'm not yours to fix line. People are calling it the new breakup gospel. Amara snatched the phone and watched the grainy video. There she was, poised and cold. Julian standing in front of her, looking like a man unraveling. The caption read, When your ex pops up 5 years late and thinks he's the main character. Below it, thousands of comments. She ate. Put her in the Heartbreak Hall of Fame. Can we get this on a shirt? Julian can still get it though. She said what needed to be said. Period. Amara dropped the phone on her desk, half amused, half horrified. I didn't even know someone was recording, she muttered. Tasha smirked. Welcome to 2025, boo. Before she could process more, her boss, Curtis, appeared in the doorway, clapping slowly. Now that, he said, was a masterclass in boundaries and brand awareness. Amara groaned. Please don't. Oh, I'm gonna, Curtis grinned. The numbers are insane. Your show's already up 20% this week, which brings me to an idea. She narrowed her eyes. I hate your ideas. Love Late, the reboot. You and Julian. 1 mic, 1 hour, no edits. Amara's laugh was sharp. You want me to co-host with the man I publicly sent back to the shadows? Exactly, Curtis said, thrilled. People eat that up. You two have unresolved chemistry, history, pain, growth. It's messy, it's real. It's my life, Amara snapped. Curtis softened slightly. I get it. But think about it. You get the final say, on your terms. And if it helps the audience heal too, maybe it's not just for them. Amara sat back in her chair, heart pounding. She hadn't listened to Julian's playlist, hadn't called him, hadn't wanted to. But now, the world was watching, and some part of her, the part that once cracked open for him, was curious. Not about romance, about resolution. Curtis leaned back in his leather chair, grinning like a man who'd just booked a Super Bowl halftime show. Julian sat across from him, trying not to fidget. I didn't expect this meeting, Julian said cautiously. Oh, you didn't just cause a scene, Curtis replied, tapping his screen. You gave us a moment. Amara lit you up in 4K, and somehow people are rooting for both of you. That's rare. That's gold. Julian's brow furrowed. So, what, you want to milk it? Curtis shrugged. Let's call it reframing the narrative. Look, I know you messed up. And yeah, maybe this started messy. But people respond to truth, to tension, and to two complicated people being honest on air. He slid a folder across the desk. One-time segment. You tell your side. Amara keeps full control of the board. No surprises, no gotchas. But if you really want to own what happened, this is how you do it. Not in shadows, not behind music. In front of a mic. Julian hesitated. You think she'll go for this? She already has. Curtis smiled. Julian picked up the folder, quietly weighing it. All right, he said finally. If she's in, I'm in. The studio was colder than usual. Or maybe it just felt that way. Amara sat at her desk. Notes organized, headset already on. She didn't look up when the door opened. Julian stepped in, dressed simple. Dark jeans, black hoodie, nerves just beneath the surface. She didn't greet him. He sat in a guest chair, adjusting the mic like it might bite him. Silence. Then Amara spoke, her voice flat. Ground Rees. Okay. You don't interrupt. You don't deflect. And if you try to spin this into a redemption arc, I will cut to commercial and walk out. He nodded. Sayre. She looked at him for the first time. Really looked. He seemed older. Not just in age, but in the way men look when they've seen themselves clearly. Maybe for the first time. I'm not doing this for closure, she said. I've already healed. This is for the people listening, who think silence is how love ends. Julian's throat tightened, but he didn't respond. Tasha's voice crackled through the earpiece. We're live in 30. They both turned toward their mics. Amara adjusted hers, then looked straight at Julian. Let's tell the truth, Carter. The red light blinked on. The red on-air light glowed steady. Amara leaned toward the mic, voice even and clear. You're listening to Love Late, and tonight we're breaking pattern. No advice, no letters, no call-ins. Just a conversation, 5 years overdue. She turned to Julian, her tone sharp but calm. Julian Carter, welcome to the sound booth. Thanks for having me, he said, his voice low and smooth. You're not here to promote a project or apologize for a photo op. You're here because the internet saw us at a coffee shop, and now the world thinks our unfinished business is somehow their business. Julian gave a small, breathy laugh. Yeah, we gave them something to talk about. Amara didn't laugh. So let's give them the real story. Why'd you leave? Silence. Then, I was unraveling, Julian said. Career flatlined. I was broke, ashamed, and convinced I was dragging you down. You were building a future, and I felt like a man standing in the way. You didn't give me a choice, she sapped. You vanished. You took love and turned it into a ghost. I thought walking away was the least selfish thing I could do, he replied, steady. Turns out, it was just cowardice dressed up as nobility. Amara blinked, surprised by the honesty, but didn't soften. I was left me broken, she said, voice tight. You left and I shattered, and I rebuilt alone. You don't get to step back in now and play wise or wounded. I'm not trying to play anything. I came here to speak the truth. I still love you, Amara. I probably always will. But I know that love alone isn't enough if it can't stand beside you. Her breath caught, subtle, but real. He continued, quieter now. I'm not asking for a second chance. I'm just asking not to be a shadow anymore. Silence filled the air. Amara leaned toward the mic, eyes still on him. This isn't a reunion, it's a reckoning. Then she turned back to her audience. And for anyone listening who's still haunted by the voice of someone who left, you owe them nothing. Not your peace, not your progress, not your mic time. But if you choose to speak, let it be on your terms. The on-air light dimmed. The studio was quiet again. Julian exhaled. You always did know how to land the last line. Amara pulled off her headset and stood. Don't mistake clarity for closure. He stood too, slower. Wasn't trying to win. You didn't, she said, but her voice lacked venom now. Just weariness. He nodded, understanding. She gathered her things. As she reached for the door, she paused. I listened to the playlist, she said without turning around. Track 7 wrecked me. Julian smiled, almost sad. That was always your song. She didn't respond, just opened the door. Good night, Julian. Goodbye, Amara. She walked out. But this time the goodbye wasn't a wound. It was a choice. Home again. Amara dropped her bag at the door, toed off her shoes, and collapsed onto the couch, without turning on a single light. The stillness pressed in. Not heavy, not hollow. Just full. Full of everything she'd said, everything she hadn't. The silence wasn't lonely. It was earned. She stared at the ceiling. Her voice still echoed in her head. This isn't a reunion. It's a reckoning. She meant it. She'd spoken from the scar, not the wound. That had to count for something. Still, something twisted in her gut. Not regret, but a question she wouldn't let surface yet. Maybe never. Her phone buzzed. She ignored it. Instead, she finally pulled out the old letter. The one she'd written after Julian left. The one she almost read on her broadcast 100 times before deciding no one needed to hear her at her most undone. She read it again, silently. The ink was smudged from an old tear. I didn't need perfect. I needed you present. She closed the letter. Let her head fall back. Healing didn't always feel triumphant. Sometimes it just felt quiet. Across town, Julian sat on the edge of his bed, elbows on knees, phone still in hand. He replayed the segment in his head. Every clipped word, every line she delivered like a knife wrapped in velvet. He'd expected the burn. What he didn't expect was the hollowness after. He hadn't said enough. He'd told the truth, yes, but the whole truth? That he still played her voicemail just to hear her laugh. That no one ever measured up to her fire. That he left not just out of fear, but because deep down, he didn't believe he deserved to be loved by someone who saw him that clearly. He dropped the phone on the floor and lay back on the bed, arms stretched wide like a man crucified by his own silence. Maybe she didn't need anything else from him. Maybe she truly moved on. But Julian knew he hadn't left everything on the mic. And until he did, the past wouldn't stay buried. Amara stood in Curtis's office, arms crossed, eyes narrowed. She already knew something was up. Tasha had warned her before the meeting. Curtis was grinning like a man who'd just gone viral himself. First of all, he began, spinning his monitor around, to show a dashboard lit up with charts and engagement spikes. I've never seen anything like this. You and Julian, you broke records. Amara didn't flinch. That wasn't a show. That was my life. And that's why it worked, Curtis said. Because it was real. And now the people want more. Amara groaned. Of course they do. They're asking for your origin story, he continued. The playlist days, the come-up, the rooftop dates, the breakup, all of it. They want to understand the fallout, the love before the wreck. She shook her head. I'm not turning my heart into an exhibit. Curtis leaned forward. What if it's not about the heartbreak? What if it's about how two people who once loved each other talk like adults? About honesty, closure, maybe even forgiveness. That's powerful, Amara. She was quiet. Not because she agreed, but because part of her was curious. What would it mean to really talk about the before, not just the breaking point? Then he dropped the bomb. Julian's already in. Her head snapped up. You asked him before asking me? I floated it. He didn't hesitate. Of course he didn't. That was the Julian she remembered, impulsive when it didn't cost him anything. I need to think about it, she said tightly. Curtis nodded. Sure, but think fast. We're hot right now. Strike while the truth's still warm. The next evening, Julian walked into the studio again. Quieter this time. Less sure. Amara was already there, flipping through notes, headset resting on her shoulders. She didn't look up when he entered. You're early, she said. She glanced at him. You sure you want to keep doing this? He nodded. If you'll have me. Amara paused. This isn't redemption, Julian. This is documentation. Don't confuse the mic, for mercy. I don't, he said. But if we're going to open the vault, I want to tell it right. All of it. She studied him for a beat. Then, no edits, no smoothing the edges. Deal. She handed him a stack of cue cards. Start with the first night, the night we met. Julian sat across from her, and for a moment, something unspoken passed between them. A flicker of something old. Not romance, not yet. Just recognition. Then the light turned red. They were live. The red on-air light blinked on. Amara's voice was steady, but her fingers fidgeted with her pen, a nervous tell only Tasha would recognize. Tonight, she said, we're doing something different. Again. Julian sat across from her, calm but alert. We're talking about the before, the good, the beginning. She turned to him, clipped but clear. Julian, tell them how it started. He smiled, small, careful. Open mic night, Midtown. You were in the back, laughing at my bad poetry. Amara cracked a smile, despite herself. It was bad. You were wearing this oversized yellow sweater, he continued, and boots that looked like they'd stomped through something. They had been. Julian leaned in slightly. I don't remember the poem I read. I just remember looking up and seeing you not looking at me. And somehow, I still wanted to impress you. Amara's voice softened, but only slightly. You sang something. A cover of that old Maxwell track. I saw you mouth the words, Julian said, eyes never leaving hers, and I thought, that's her, that's the girl. The pause stretched. Then Amara spoke to the audience. We were 25, broke, hungry, loud. I used to sneak into his rehearsals just to sit on the amp and steal fries from his bag. Julian chuckled. She still fries like it was a love language. A beat. Then Amara said quieter. It was good, until it wasn't. The light went red. After the segment, the comment board exploded. This is better than TV. Tell us about the first fight. We need them weekly. Is it weird that I want them back together, even though I watched her destroy him at a coffee shop? Can we call in? I have questions. Curtis called a meeting immediately. We're doing a Q&A night, he said, barely letting Amara sit. Listeners are obsessed. They want details, feelings, regret, growth, all of it. Julian's in. Amara didn't hide her annoyance. He always is. Curtis gave her a look. So are you. She sighed, deep, measured, and finally nodded. Fine, but I pick the questions, and if anyone gets reckless, we kill the feed. You're in control. Damn right I am, she muttered, standing. If we're going to pull back the curtain, we're doing it on my stage. The studio was buzzing, not with sound, but with pressure. Amara adjusted her mic. She was calm, poised, but her eyes were sharp. Julian sat across from her again, looser this time. As if he'd finally remembered how to breathe in her presence, Tasha's voice came through the headset. We're live in 5. Questions are already flooding in. Amara gave Julian a sideways glance. You ready to be publicly interrogated? He grinned. I've been through worse. She smirked. Yeah, I remember your 2017 EP. Julian laughed, hand to his chest. Damn, we're doing that already? I said what I said. The on-air light blinked on. Amara turned to the mic, voice smooth as silk. Welcome back, lovers. You've been asking, so tonight we're answering. Unfiltered, uncomfortable, unscripted. She gestured toward Julian. He's back, willingly, which says something about either his courage or just his poor decision-making skills. Julian leaned in. Or maybe I just missed the sound of you roasting me in HD. She almost laughed, caught herself, and moved on. Let's get into it. First question. What was your worst fight? Amara blinked. Oof, that's a warm-up. Julian nodded slowly. Probably the one where I told you I didn't need saving. And I told you, Amara said, that loving someone isn't the same as fixing them. They both paused, remembering. Julian cleared his throat. We didn't talk for 3 days after that. Longest 3 days of my 20s. Amara murmured. I even started journaling. It was dire. Next question. Was there a moment when you both knew it was love? Amara hesitated. Julian answered first. You brought me lemon ginger tea when I was sick, but stayed far enough away to avoid catching it. You told me, I love you, but I don't trust your immune system. Amara snorted. That's romantic to you? Absolutely. She was quiet for a beat. You played that Marvin Gaye record, on vinyl. Told me the scratches made it better, like the flaws meant it had been loved harder. Julian nodded. That's when I knew it too. The air grew still for a second, soft, loaded. Last question. If you could go back to the night before the breakup, what would you say? Amara inhaled slowly. I'd tell him I was stronger than he gave me credit for, she said. That walking away wasn't mercy, it was fear. And that the love I had for him deserved more than a disappearing act. Julian looked down, then back up at her. I'd say I was wrong. About everything. That I thought leaving was love. But I see now it was just abandonment with good intentions. The on-air light faded. Silence again. Julian broke it with a half-smile. Well, that wasn't a total train wreck. Amara shook her head, but her voice was softer now. You still talk too much. He leaned back. You still love the sound of it. She didn't answer. This time, she smiled. Just a little. The knock came just after sundown, sharp, impatient. Amara opened the door to find her mother, Regina Lewis, standing on the threshold in a cream trench coat and pearl earrings, looking like she was there to audit someone's life. Mom, Amara said, surprised, but not entirely pleased. Didn't expect you. Regina stepped in like she owned the place. You're lucky I still believe in surprise visits. The way you're handing your life to the public like a confession booth. Amara closed the door slowly. Straight to it, huh? Regina placed her bag on the table and scanned the room like she was looking for weakness. I heard the show, the series. You and that boy reliving old wounds for strangers with coffee and opinions. Amara crossed her arms. He has a name, and it wasn't about reliving. It was about telling the truth. Regina gave a tight smile. There's telling the truth, and there's bleeding for ratings. Amara's jaw tightened. I'm not bleeding, I'm owning my story. You're making an entertainment, Regina snapped. Where's your privacy, your pride? The Amara who didn't need anyone to validate her on air? I'm still her, Amara said, voice low but firm. But I'm also someone who believes that vulnerability isn't weakness, it's connection. Regina sighed, pulling off her gloves. That boy already broke you once. You want to be careful with your heart, not generous with it. And there it was. Amara swallowed. You mean you were never generous with yours? The words hung in the air, colder than the breeze outside. Regina didn't deny it. I did what I had to do to survive, and I wanted better for you. Amara nodded. I am better, but not because I'm hard. Because I chose to stay soft. Even after him. Even after you. Her mother looked at her then. Really looked. There was no apology, but something like recognition flickered in her eyes. Just be smart, Amara, she said quietly. There's a difference between healing and reopening old wounds. As she left, Amara stood still by the door, hearing her words echo long after the heels faded down the hall. She wasn't sure if her mother came to protect her or warn her. Maybe both. The email came just before midnight. Amara sat on her balcony with a blanket wrapped around her shoulders and a mug of tea gone cold in her hand. She wasn't waiting for anything, just trying to breathe. The subject line read, Official offer, National syndication, NYC studio. She opened it slowly, her heart already pounding. It was real. The next level. A national platform. A corner office. A salary with commas and respect she'd earned 10 times over. But there, in bold, was the clause that made her stomach turn. This opportunity will require your relocation to New York City. All current projects and shows under Wave 98.7 would need to be formally closed or transitioned. It wasn't a job. It was a fork in the road. Amara leaned back in her chair, staring at the city skyline. Curtis had always told her she'd outgrow Atlanta radio, that she was bigger than the booth. But the booth wasn't just where she worked. It was where she became herself again, after Julian left. Now she was being asked to leave it, and everything that came with it, behind. Her phone buzzed. "Julian, heard your mom came by. You good?" Amara stared at the screen. She typed, paused, deleted, then typed again. Amara. She did what she does, and said a lot. A minute passed. "Julian, sounds familiar. You want to talk?" Amara, no. She stared at the word, then added, Amara, not right now. Another pause. "Julian, okay. I'll be here when not right now changes." She locked the phone and placed it face down beside her. She hadn't told him about New York because she didn't want his opinion. She wanted to know what her heart, not her fear, not her mother, not the audience, actually wanted. And right now, that answer still lived somewhere between goodbye and stay. New York greeted her. Loud, sharp, electric. The kind of city that made you feel like you were already behind the moment you stepped off the plane. Amara checked into a quiet boutique hotel in Soho, not one of the fancy towers with skyline views, but something low, brick, and real. She liked her solitude with soft lighting and good pillows. The network had sent over the full contract again. Printed, annotated, branded with their letterhead and expectations. She spent most of Saturday flipping through it in a corner cafe. A producer would be assigned to her. Her schedule would run 6 days a week. TV appearances, branding meetings, morning tapings, and evening panels, publicity tours. Control, but within the parameters of a machine. It was everything she'd once wanted. And yet, that night, walking through Central Park with her scarf tucked around her ears, Amara thought about Atlanta. Her tiny kitchen, her Sunday dinners with her best friend Maya, the impromptu studio dance sessions with Tasha. Quiet hour before going live, sipping tea in her robe, her freedom. And she thought of Julian. Not in a romantic montage way, but in that quiet, stubborn way someone lives in your life after you've forgiven them more than once. She wasn't afraid of the opportunity. She was afraid of losing the version of herself she liked best. She admitted, that version didn't live here. The Atlanta air hit her different. Warmer, slower, hers. Amara rolled her suitcase down the hallway at Wave 98.7 and poked her head into the producer's booth. Tasha sat with her legs up, sipping a smoothie and scrolling through submissions. "Well," Tasha said, "look who survived the Big Apple." Amara dropped her bag and flopped onto the couch. "Barely. Everything moves like it's late for something." "Did you sign it?" "No," Amara said, voice calm but certain. "Not yet. Maybe not ever." Tasha raised a brow. "That's a hell of a check to walk away from." "I know, but I'd be signing away me too." Tasha set down her cup, finally catching the shift in Amara's tone. Not fear, not indecision, but something clearer. "You thinking of staying here, turning down the show?" "I'm thinking," Amara said slowly, "of starting something that's actually mine." Tasha leaned forward, curious. "Like what?" "A podcast. My own platform. No red lights, no ratings pressure. Just me, the mic, and the people. Honest conversations. No commercials. No Curtis breathing down my neck, trying to turn my love life into a plot twist." Tasha grinned. "Whoa, so you'd be free to speak, freely." Amara smiled, a spark catching. "Exactly. I could do segments on love, on grief, on real stuff. Interviews, letters, music. All of it. Something slower, deeper." Tasha nodded. "That actually sounds like you. I want time for myself, for my people, maybe even to let something new grow." Her voice dropped, and Tasha caught the meaning. "Julian?" Amara shrugged, not giving too much. "I don't know. But whatever's next, I want space to figure it out on my terms, without cameras, producers, or curated backdrops." Tasha raised her smoothie like a toast. "To building your own booth." Amara clinked her water bottle against it. "To speaking when I want to, Not just when the light's on. They both laughed, and for the first time in weeks, Amara felt something better than powerful. She felt free. Curtis's office smelled like expensive coffee and ambition, as always. He was on the phone when Amara stepped in, but held up a finger and wrapped the call in record time. "Tell me you've come to your senses," he said, grinning. Amara didn't return it. "I've come to a decision," she replied, setting a crisp folder on his desk. "I'm not going to New York." Curtis stared at her like she dropped a lit match on a pile of contracts. "You're serious?" "I am. You're turning down syndication. National exposure. This kind of spotlight doesn't come around twice, Amara." She leaned forward. Calm, direct. "I don't need a spotlight to do what I do. I need ownership, flexibility, freedom." Curtis opened the folder, a neatly drafted proposal. He skimmed the first page, then glanced back up at her. "A podcast." "My podcast," Amara said, "owned by me." Julian smiled, slow, cautious. "Depends. Looking for heartbreak or healing?" "Maybe something with both," she said, stepping closer. He handed her a sleeve, an old jazz record, cracked at the edges. "The flaws make it better, remember?" She smiled at that. Small, real. They stood in silence, listening to the rain tap the glass. "I'm not here to pick up where we left off," she said. "That door closed. But I think there's space for something else." Julian nodded. "I'd like that. No expectations, just honesty." Amara exhaled, the kind that lets go of 5 years of anger without needing anyone to ask her to. "You weren't the only one who had to forgive you," she said. "I had to forgive me too. For what I let myself carry. For how long I carried it." Julian looked down. "That's the part no one warns you about." "Yeah," she said. "But I'm done carrying. I want to be present with the people who show up." Julian glanced at her. Something soft in his expression. "I'm here." Amara nodded. "I know." They didn't hug, didn't touch, but she stayed, just long enough to flip through a few records, to let the quiet grow comfortable again. Whatever this was, it didn't need a label. Just time, just care. And maybe, in the space where the wreckage used to be, something new could begin. The on-air light glowed again, softer this time. Or maybe it just felt that way. Amara sat behind the mic, a single page in her hand, worn and creased, like something sacred. Julian sat across from her again, not as a feature, not as a spectacle, just as a man who stayed when he said he would. "Tonight," she said, voice steady but low, "I want to share something I never meant for anyone else to hear." She looked down at the page. This letter was written 5 years ago. After the silence, after the hurt. I never sent it. I barely let myself read it. But I held on to it because it reminded me of who I was and how far I had to come. A deep breath. Then she read, "Dear Julian, I keep wondering what I did wrong. What moment, what word, what silence pushed you out the door. And then I realize, maybe it wasn't about me at all. Still, I hate that you left me to heal in pieces. I wanted a love that stayed, that didn't run from the hard parts, that didn't confuse silence with safety. But you didn't stay, and I didn't break. That's what matters now. I'm still here. Louder, softer, stronger. Still full of love. Not for you anymore, but for myself. Goodbye was never mine to give, so I'm giving it now. On my terms." She finished reading, let the words linger. Julian didn't speak. He didn't need to. Then came the feedback. Tasha's voice buzzed through the booth. "The board is flooded. You want to take a few?" Amara nodded, adjusting the volume. Caller 1. "You don't know how much I needed that letter. I've been holding on to someone who let go a long time ago. Thank you for giving me permission to let it end." Caller 2. "That was the realest thing I've ever heard on this station. I don't know what y'all are, but please don't stop sharing like this. It's healing us out here." Caller 3. "Julian, it takes something rare to sit through a letter like that. Respect." Julian leaned into the mic, his voice low. She didn't owe me grace. She gave it anyway. And I'll carry that. Amara looked at him, not with love, but with something gentler. Peace. She turned back to the audience. Whatever you're holding, whatever you wrote and never said, maybe it's time. Maybe healing doesn't mean the pain never happened. Maybe it just means we've made room for something else. A long pause. Then, softly, this is Love Late. Thank you for listening. The red light dimmed. A small recording sign glowed red outside the new studio door. Not corporate, not rented, but hers. Amara sat on a velvet couch, legs tucked beneath her, barefoot and comfortable. No headset, just a single mic, a candle burning on the windowsill, and a mug of herbal tea steaming beside her notes. She glanced at her laptop. Recording. Live. She smiled, pressed record. Hey, she said, voice smooth and quiet. Welcome to Unscripted. I'm Amara. No intro music, no producer cues, just her voice, softer than ever, full of space. I used to think strength meant knowing the answers, saying the right things, never flinching, never cracking. But real strength, it's in the pause, in the breaking and rebuilding, in laughing through what you thought might ruin you. She leaned back, relaxed, rooted. This podcast isn't about being perfect. It's about being present. Some weeks I'll talk. Some weeks I'll listen. Sometimes we'll sit in the silence together. A chime sounded, a listening voicemail. She smiled, clicked play, and just like that, Unscripted began. Outside, the world kept spinning, noisy and bright. Inside, Amara was finally speaking on her terms. Not just live, but alive. The sun was setting over Atlanta, casting amber light across Amara's living room. She stood by the window, phone pressed to her ear, fingers tracing the rim of her coffee mug. Her mother answered on the second ring. Amara? Hey, she said. Got a minute? Regina's voice softened. Always. There was a pause, not awkward. Just full. I turned down the New York job, Amara said. I'm starting a podcast, partnering with the station to keep Love Late on the air, but it's on my terms now. No more chasing someone else's definition of success. You're really doing it your way, her mother said. Took me a long time to understand what that actually means. Yeah, Amara said. Me too. Another pause. And Julian? Regina asked, careful. We're not together, Amara replied. But I forgave him. Not for him, for me. It was time to stop carrying old pain like it was part of my identity. And now, her mother asked. Now we move forward, Amara said, in different directions, with respect, with space. There was a long silence on the other end. Then, I'm proud of you, Regina said quietly, even if I don't always say it the right way. Amara's eyes stung. She smiled through it. I know. And thanks, Mom. They talked a little longer. Nothing profound, just enough to stitch something new between them. When the call ended, Amara felt lighter, like she'd finally stepped into the life she chose, not the one she survived. The mic wasn't on, but her voice had never been clearer. The end. Thanks for listening to Green Tea Tales. Hope you enjoyed our story. Help support the channel with likes, shares, and subscribes. But